afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our session in the afternoon. My name is Manish Verma. I'm one of the co-founders of Space Fluencers here. We are going to talk about using audience is very supportive. Thank you. Yeah, so today we're going to cover something very interesting, which I think everybody has been a part of in some way or the other, but has not actually formally talked about it. It's about how metaverse can be used and how artificial intelligence in the world is using metaverse to get education into the platform of real life people. We have a panel of experts here to talk, but first, before I start actually talking about the topic itself, I would like to talk a little bit about our own organizations, which very few of you might be aware of. We are space influencers. It's a combination of two words, as you might have already guessed, space and influence, or influencers. We are actually started by 3 students. I guess this is what technostress. Let's move, started wisely here. We started in 2019, just before the COVID hit us, with an aim to basically make a community of space influencers that can be able to educate and inspire people not only in professionals who are non-aerospace, but also at high school level. And one of the key target areas for us was just not the high school students itself, but also the high school teachers. Because as you might have gone through your high school education, teachers play a vital role in your choices that you make, what subject you will take, what track will you take, and what kind of interest you have outside school. And we have realized through our experience that if teachers do not know enough about a subject, they actually cannot tell you also about it. So if aerospace engineers become teachers, high school teachers, they will encourage people to go towards STEM or engineering. But if it's a biologist teaching you, then they will push you towards, or they have more experience, not push you, they just have more things to talk about their own field. So we started community mostly on Discord first, and with some physical events with partners like Endless Space in Northlight. We also started with InVR, which is one of the oldest aerospace in Netherlands society made of veterans and engineers. And also, of course, at TU Delft, because we are most of the students from TU Delft, but also at Groningen and at Nijmegen. So we have had past 2.5 years quite a bit of experience on talking about these kind of subjects. And I think at Summit AI, we are third time running now that we're hosting a panel of our own. So that's something, just a short description about our society. So coming back to the topic is innovative technologies in education. We have a variety of panels here, starting with Xander, who is in digital form available to us, or going to present. That's why one seat next to me is empty. The next is Marco, who is right here. Then is me, being going to be your day's moderator. Then is Joris, and then is Blue, and then Sabir. I'll give the introduction as they come up to speak, but for now, let's get started, I think. So, yeah, okay. So, we're going to give the bench to Xander. Xander, can you see us? Can we switch to VR? Okay, so as we can see that actually Xander is participating with us from US in a virtual world, and Lou is going to navigate. And I think Xander has a story to tell you, and I'll leave the stage to him. Xander, it's all yours.
So, oh, great. Well, I'm Lourdes, and I am here in Marco's body, and I'll be walking along with you. So, let's start. Where are we now?
In Miami, which is a luxury penthouse built by exclusive blood purchasers at NFT. So, thank you for joining me in the Free Energy Penthouse and everyone at the World AI Summit. My name is Xander Sims, creatively known as Xander Love, and I'm the founder of Digital Storytellers Inc. We provide content production strategies for brands in the Web3 ecosystem. I prepared a quick video for us to watch, and we can chat more about AI, space, education, and the metaverse. Follow me.
Conducted here in microgravity helps NASA prepare for long duration missions to the Moon and Mars and contributes to improvements for life on Earth. During my first spaceflight mission in 2016, we were able to sequence DNA in space for the very first time. With this breakthrough in three-dimensional printing thick, vascularized human organ tissue, we could be able to test the impacts of microgravity on tissues right here on the International Space Station. And this could pave the way for medical breakthroughs in tissue and preparation and regeneration back on Earth. I'm excited about the research being done by all of the Vascular Tissue Challenge participants. And I really look forward to potentially working with your tissue samples here on the International Space Station in the future. Thank you, and congratulations. Thanks, Steve. We are moments away from announcing.
All right, thank you, thank you, thank you. So that was actually a project I got to work with NASA at the end of last year, or prior to joining the metaverse space. And in this theater, you can see I have some artwork up. This poster over here is about an upcoming project called Let Go, a metaverse mosaic for creators from Sandra Love, featuring Katie Art, Nancy Yu, and Sidor Flora, on the Cavernous metaverse, which is an exploration of digital fact and its extension of consciousness beyond taste or style. And this poster is an AI-generated image created from Midjourney. And finally, on the wall here,
Xander,
we
can
have
you see me?
career com.
Hey, Xander.
No, it's
Yeah. Yeah. Hi. So I think we'll come back to you because we're having some audio problems because we can't hear you with some noise. So we'll just come back to you in like 15 minutes. Just hang on there. Yeah?
okay.
Thanks. Thanks, Xander. Sorry, guys. New technology is still getting used to the old one. So we'll just come back to Xander. Thanks, Luke. I think it's best that we move on to other speakers who are actually here present in like real world, so we don't have the audio problem that we see. So moving on, let's talk with Jared. I think you're the best person to introduce yourself and move it forward. I'll give you the clicker.
Yeah, perfect. So very nice to be here. I am the CTO. I'm one of the founders of YOM. What we're building is basically the infrastructure that is going to empower the metaverse of the future. Because as you've seen, based on this stream, if you go to those platforms, you know that metaverse is not there yet where it needs to be. And so the question is, okay, what should metaverse be, right? And many of you have probably seen the movie Ready Player One, right? So Ready Player One is a metaverse where you can go to each of these different metaspaces. Every metaspace has its own unique rules, unique experiences, very engaging. You can do very specific things in some spaces and very broad, general things in others. Right? So every experience is completely unique. And in order to get there, we have to basically reconsider, rethink what it means for a metaverse to be a metaverse. And that's basically what we did at YOM. So we started off with the understanding that metaverse is not going to be a game, it's not going to be like Meta, it's not going to be like the Decentraland or the Sandbox or Second Life. No, instead it's more like the natural evolution of technologies converging into this new industry, which is going to be the metaverse, right? So we have the digital space already around us, the internet, web shops, web apps, etc. And then the next step in that evolution would be to add in a tokenized economy, to add in a virtualized environment around you where you can really experience unique experiences. So that starting point led us to basically create YOM. Yes, and we started off with basically the three pillars of what this new metaverse should entail. And one of them is the interoperability pillar. So all of these worlds, they should somehow interconnect. So it should be very easy for you as a user, as a consumer of virtual content, to go to these worlds, just like with different web pages. So that's one of the pillars, and we created this portaling technology. We created this cloud infrastructure for that, so that instead of you as a user, you have to install a game, you have to load up the game, you have to load up the level, and there you are after you've logged in, and it took basically 10 minutes, 20 minutes for you to get there, assuming you have all of the hardware and payments in place. So instead of that, it should be as easy as just going to a web page, and there you have it, you're in, you're authenticated. And from that place, then if you want to go to, let's say, a Grand Prix match and watch Max Verstappen live, you can actually then portal to the Max Verstappen match, and you can beat Max Verstappen while he is doing his live race or his virtual race, because he's doing a lot of those as well. And when you beat Max Verstappen on this track, you earn some kind of reward, and that reward could be an NFT, could be a PO-up, could be a cap which has Max Verstappen on there. And these caps could be very unique, right? So these types of experiences, all interconnected without having you to spin up a game, download anything, authenticate, that's what we are building. The second, so that also brings us to the second point, which is the programmability. And programmability and ease of use, that's some kind of paradox, because the more programmable something is, the harder it is to get into creating content. So what we're seeing right now is a whole revolution in the creation of content. So that means that it's now very easy to create your level 3 models in Minecraft, in Decentraland, in Roblox. But the unfortunate thing is they're not very engaging, right? So we are missing some components to make it engaging. And those two, we believe, are cloud technology on the one hand and AI on the other. So cloud technology makes it possible for users to experience very quality engaging content, and the AI is going to make it very easy for creators to produce new types of content. So instead of having to go to Blender and manually sculpt whatever they want, they can directly prompt, so they just type in whatever they want, and then it spawns there directly in that experience. And then they can use like a graph editor, node editor, to create some kind of custom experience. So instead of taking years to develop a game, it should now take days to create this very highly engaging experience, right? And that also brings us to the first part, the cloud part, to make it very accessible from a user perspective, but also accessible again from a creator perspective, in the sense that if you only need to develop for the cloud rather than for every type of device, you save about 80% of your development efforts as well. So all of these things together, if you combine them, you have your open metaverse, so that's what we are building. And it looks basically like this. So we have an SDK component which includes AI. It includes basically an interface to all of the major game engines. We have a web app, which is basically the bridge from the game engine to the cloud, to the blockchain, where you can tokenize every asset that you created, where you can basically deploy any custom experience to your own website, or any channel, that doesn't really matter. And the last part is basically the experience itself. So you can travel in between all of these types of experience using our portal technology. Yeah, so that's basically the introduction of what we've been doing. Yeah.
Bit of Q&A. Bit of Q&A. Yeah.
All right.
So, thank you Jos for the introduction to your startup company that you have built. Is there any questions from the audience before I ask him?
It was all very clear. Very clear.
Wow. Yes, please. I think you'll get a microphone behind you.
So how are the users represented?
Yeah.
Avatar-like, interaction-wise, what can you also program to this world?
Yeah, so what we do is we basically integrate with many different avatar systems, like Ready Player Me, but also Radium, which is more like the photorealistic type of avatar. So you can use those systems, but you can also, if you have an NFT that contains an expression of who you are, you can also use that as part of your identity.
So my question also goes into the direction of emotion-wise, so how you can influence like body language with models, for example, to make the talking part more realistic.
Yes, so for that there are multiple things in development. So on the one hand, there is more the explosion in technology around sensors, like the hardware itself. And the other one is more from the AI perspective, where you have just a webcam and it knows your expressions and it basically feeds that into that particular world. So we are also, we have done some experiences with that as well.
Yeah, we've also seen that people are sometimes shy in front of the webcam, and that from pure audio signals you can also generate very interesting body language.
I mean, yeah, sure. Could also work via audio signals, text to body language, something in that order.
Yeah, I think it's great that you have the approach of the open metaverse and combining like the different qualities, because there are many solutions out there and they all have their specific quality.
Yeah, that's just, I think, also the reason why we say, okay, we're not going to build a game. We're going to integrate with all of the major game engines, because over time, there will be plugins for those game engines that support all of these, and they're already out there, but will continue to support and evolve in the direction of improved sensor technology and improved AI and body tracking. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we should move on. So we should move on from someone who can provide content or a platform to do your content basically to someone who can actually value and have a strategy of that content for the metaverse. So I'd like to give the word to Marco, who is working at TCS Place in Amsterdam. Actually, one of his key work at work is using metaverse. So I see it from Marco.
Thank you. And just before I continue, Xander is still there, and I think maybe you might have to go to that other computer in order to move around eventually. Hello, everyone. So I think the metaverse is nothing if it doesn't provide utility, and it's not valuable for some things, right? And I put the new normal because we've all heard this phrase, especially after COVID, saying, well, this is the new normal, right? But never in a positive light. And I think I'm the optimist. I'm the one who thinks, no, why don't we shape the new normal the way we want it? The way we want it for ourselves, for our kids, for everyone else. And I think I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people who've been thinking about this new normal for a very long time. I like to think of the metaverse a little bit as an overnight success, decades in the making, because it has been a long journey for people who've been working on VR, people who've been working in the crypto space, people who've been working on Web3, all different technologies that finally are confluencing because we've got scalability of cloud, we've got adoption. 5G is also entering 6E here, is also starting to make inlays. We've got mass adoption of games, of social platforms. So all of this together is giving us the opportunity to do something a bit different. And it's not just us, the dreamers and the thinkers, that are sensing this, right? Here's McKinsey, as of this year, looking at how much money is being invested into the metaverse. And here we're talking about more than 120 billion so far, and the year is not even over. And they're looking at 5 trillion by 2030. So everybody's taking notice. And this has been around for a long time. NASA was using VR in the 1990s to train the astronauts, and they continue to do so, also to do remote activities when they're in space. Second Life, even though some people might think are they still even relevant, they've got 70 million users, and they have very active active communities still running. Just because you haven't heard of them doesn't mean that they're not there. The Royal Danish Air Force is also using it. Latest player in the game, NVIDIA, is creating this Omniverse for the manufacturing metaverse, to create a digital twin of manufacturing plants in order to design them better. So this is happening, and how do we even define it? I think we're still doing that. I would like to think of it as 3D plus Web3. Because 3D on its own is just a shell, right? It's like a house in the middle of the desert. If you don't have utilities, if you don't have water or electricity to feed it, then it's just a shell. It doesn't provide a lot of use unless you connect it to all the capabilities, all the possibilities that you have behind. And to understand what I'm talking about, I'm going to refer back to the information highway, which is, I think, what the word metaverse is going to sound like years from now. And the value of the browser was not in the page itself, right? The page, the browser, the World Wide Web, in the end, was just an interface that connects people to the content and to the capability that they really needed. So when you're accessing something, it's not the two-dimensional representation of a physical page that we call a web page. That is where the value is. The value is in knowing when is your next train so that you can make it here on time. The value is to know what is the weather going to be like. The value is all the things, all the knowledge and information you can access that is being supported by these systems. Similarly, what we're talking about the metaverse is not the shell itself. That is a metaphor. It's a visualization. It's a three-dimensional representation of all the information that you actually want to access. So all those systems that are already there, that are feeding real-time weather, real information, that allow you to interact with the environment as you wish, that is just an interface. So the real value is what are we going to feed into this augmented space to do something with. And there's all different types, right? The metaverse doesn't exist yet. Just like if we think of the internet, if you only have one or two websites that don't link to each other, that's not an internet, right? That's just a couple of loose pages in space. So similarly, we're going to see, and we're already seeing, an explosion of different spaces, of different types, from entertainment to manufacture, to retail, to economics, to onboarding into employees into a new company, to testing things, to learning about, let's say, firemen doing something in very dangerous situations. So there's all kinds, and each organization that is creating these worlds is going to have their own idea of what it should be like. They're going to shape it of how they think it should work. And people like Jovek here is the partner that we need to start making those links to see how do you go from one world to another. How do you translate, for example, if you're in an educational space, all the things that you learn, and then you get an NFT saying that this is your certificate of completion, and you walk into a different world, that's still valid. So you take it with you. We're talking about also your personal identity in terms of avatars. How do you ensure that the identity that you're crafting for yourself, you're able to use it as you move through these different worlds? That is still being worked on, but it's happening. And this is the ecosystem that I think we need to think about when we look at the metaverse. It's a lot of people able to access different spaces that are fed by anything from IoT, data streams, the blockchain, AI, looking at it, learning from it, giving you diagnostics and predicting what's about to happen, smart contracts, and all of that you can access not just through your VR goggles, which is the typical thing that everybody might think of, but you can also access it through your mobile, through your browser. It's also AR, it doesn't have to be VR specifically. So there's a lot of ways in which we can be immersed and interact with this. And right now it might sound, I'm never going to spend 24/7 in the metaverse. No. But if I had told you 20 years ago that you were going to be just about 24/7 in the internet, you would have laughed. And yet today, how much of the day do we go without using some form of internet service? We're immersed. So how are we going to get there to this new normal that I think we should be shaping today? It's with curiosity, with opportunity, and with substance. So the curiosity of the creators, of the people who think, can we? How could we? Can we do things better? Can we provide something else? The opportunity that brings the technology, that looks at the opportunity of business, at the value that we can do things, and the opportunity of skills. People who have learned the skills in different subsets now coming together, and finally substance. Because without a real reason to do something, this is not going to be sustainable, right? We need to think, what is the value that we can bring? Whether it's to employees, whether it's to consumers, whether it's to friends and family, it has to be a real value and not just a FOMO of, oh, this is so cool, look at me, but rather, what can I really do? Can I make an experience more immersive and therefore people learn it better, not just in schools, but also in dangerous situations or at the office. So I think all of those is what is going to make this new future, and we need to do it together. This is not a one-man show. This is really the confluence of a lot of skill sets joining forces and doing this. So that's what I want to leave you with. Let's create this new normal, and let's shape it how we want it. Thank you.
So maybe one question of mine before I give it to the audience. You use the word curiosity. I'm curious, how did you get into Metaverse to find a value in it in your not so free time?
Because I'm curious about everything. I actually started my career all those years ago as an architect, and I learned about space, about people moving through it, and then just life took me in a different direction into web design. When I started learning web design, I thought this is just like architecture, except that instead of a built environment, we're talking about a digital version of knowledge. So it was information architecture, but everybody was so fixed on the page. I thought that's such a limiting factor. So way back then, and we're talking about maybe 25 years ago, right? So way back when, I was already thinking we can do better. We can really, I mean, a page is not the best we can do. So now that about a year ago, because of COVID, yeah, like everybody else, got locked up in the house. I put on a few kilos, and I'm like, all right, I need to do something about this. I got myself an Oculus, and I started, doing exercise at home. And then about a year ago, maybe a bit more, I noticed a real hard uptick on content and activity and people creating things, and I thought, what's going on? And I looked it up, and suddenly Facebook was renaming to Meta, and everybody was getting in the act, and I thought, okay, wow, this is maybe finally we're reaching that tipping point, that mass penetration that people actually see this, and the Oculus was becoming affordable so that I could have one. So that's, yeah, does that answer?
Yeah. I think for me, yes. So I would like to ask the audience if they have a question for Marco. How his experience has been in Metaverse in general.
Who else wants to shape the new normal? Who can I count on?
I think secretly everybody. If you check their phones, yes. Okay, then I guess it's time to move on. Thank you, Marco, for introducing us to your side of your life, at least one, which is in the Metaverse itself. And then moving on, taking up your last point of your substance, let's say, moving on to, we have now talked about the platform, we have talked about the values, strategy that can be made into this platform. And we move on to two very, very important and very next generation users, basically, of like Metaverse, and one of them is Xavier. He's actually studying aerospace engineering at UDelv. He is a private pilot who also flew me here actually today. Yeah, I think I would like you to give the stage to Xavier to see how the so-called Metaverse has changed his life, even though he did not know he was actually in it. So Xavier, it's yours.
Yeah, so that's actually interesting. I got in touch with Marco and I heard a lot of things about the metaverse. But for a very long time, I had no idea that I actually had to do, or I thought that it was very far away from me. So, which was actually not the case. During my pilot training, I've actually been in a lot of simulations. So if you look closely at these pictures, the picture on the left is actually in a simulator, and on the right is in real life, at the same airport, at the same exact location. Same as for the next picture. On the left, again, in a simulator, and on the right, a flight that has been conducted last week. So I've been using quite a lot of simulators, and especially in the next phase of my training, I will use simulators as well, which is mainly focused on using the technology of VR. And in the space where we talk about education and the metaverse, I was wondering to the experts, basically, what do you consider a flight simulator a metaspace or a part of a metaverse? And what benefits can the metaverse bring to, for instance, education and flight or for pilot training?
Good question. Where is the line between a meta space and a metaverse? So I've said before, the metaverse doesn't exist yet. We have a collection of pockets being developed in different areas. Interoperability is important to start connecting it. And what is the difference between VR and a metaverse, right? That's why I was also talking about Web3 being intrinsic to this metaverse that we want to build. So your simulation on its own, if it's only on your computer, then it's very local, right? Very isolated from the rest. But as soon as you're able to connect that with the experience of other pilots in training, so that, as you mentioned before, I think you had to, at some point, wait for another pilot to take off before you could land. That sort of interaction is starting to make the most out of this interactivity and this sense of community, because you can imagine that having to wait for another pilot to take off, and maybe once you land, once they land, you can catch up in the pilot's lounge. You can exchange tips or tricks. The machine, the AI, is following your development as a pilot and says, well, you've already done 20 hours or 200 hours, however many. And you get this NFT certificate of completion. And by the way, do you want me to apply already for a scholarship, for a discount, or whatever next pilot license you can get? And then it puts it on a leaderboard that other pilots can also see, and then gives you access to things that they say, well, you've done real planes, why not space planes? And you could, become part of the community that is doubling in space technology as well as. So I'm just saying, it's once you start thinking, where is the value that connecting all those individual pockets of activity that are happening, what can you do with that connection? It really, there's a lot of things that you can do. That's where I get excited, because it really allows you to be in control of your learning and of your own activity. It gives you an opportunity to talk to others, connect with others, and then the platform allows you to expand and to maybe connect to other platforms that are, let's say, I don't know, maybe simulated truck drivers, right? And maybe there's an overlap in there, I don't know. Or space, right? Space engineers. So yeah. I talk a lot, but...
Yeah, so I sense mainly social aspects. There are a lot of social aspects when I ask what benefits the metaverse would bring over VR or simulation. Do you have something to add on my question?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the end, it's all about integration with other businesses. It's comparable in a way to having installed your local version of Microsoft Word on your computer, or creating a web page that's externally oriented, right? So there are different use cases. So sometimes you want to internally write down your notes, you use Microsoft Word. If you want to make it external, create a community around it, create a integration with other systems, with Medium, you want to share it on social media, then you have to publish it externally. The same is true with XR on the one hand, which is more your vertical a part of where you do simulation and civil engineering, right? That's all within XR, which is also a very interesting field. And the metaverse is then more the outwards external interoperability in between all of those different XR containers, where some of those XR apps will be run locally on your own devices, and others will be much more external, where you can easily share content, where you can, let's say, beat Max Verstappen in his next race, right? Or you have a DJ performing in real time with her or his motion capture suit in front of his or her audience worldwide, right? So all of those things, they really depend on how you want to use it. In the last example, that's currently also a use case we're working with. A lot of DJs, by the way, musicians are looking into this, and the reason being is that all of the travels to all of those different locations and performing and the equipment and everything that's needed, renting a location, that's so incredibly expensive. While in the metaverse, you can do it once, you record yourself, you can experiment very easily with the size, you can have everybody included, you can integrate gamified experiences where you say, okay, if you all dance on the same rhythm or jump on this particular plane or the water is rising, then the concert is not just a concert, it's becoming a game, right? So it's, you're extending, let's say, also the nature of what a concert is. So a concert is not only about the music, it's about the experience, right? So then you have to redefine what an experience is in the metaverse, right? So that is the challenge, I think, that is also very relevant to many businesses that have a community and are externally orienting themselves in this metaverse industry. So I hope that answers your question. Regarding, by the way, the pilot use case, what could be very interesting is that people on their home computer can actually see in a virtual environment where you are flying as a pilot. So they can click on a plane that they like and they can actually see what's going on. Or even that you fly the plane from your home simulator, right, at some point. Because they're all interconnected.
It's interesting because we actually do a lot of backseating as well. So we actually sit in the back of an airplane to look in the cockpit what other pilots are doing to learn from it. So what I noticed from both of you that there are a lot of social aspects, collaboration, and also making certain experiences also maybe easier to use, less costly. So and in the end making it also more realistic, the experiences that you have at home. Is that, did I get it correctly?
Well, maybe actually just one thing. I don't know if we can connect to Xander, if he's online. We can hear him. Xander, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect, perfect. So maybe if you can repeat the question because it's about experience, and I think Xander will have a thing or two to say.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not sure, did he hear everything? Yeah? Okay, can you hear the question?
A bit.
A bit. Okay, so so I just asked what the metaverse, what kind of benefits the metaverse can bring to, for instance, pilot training or other educational training. And what I noticed from the responses from Jorrit and Marco is that there are a lot of experiences getting easier to actually to do them at home. They're getting less costly. There are a lot of social aspects and that you can collaborate more in the metaverse. What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely. You can collaborate with people from all over the world. Like I'm sure you can get from right now. And even though you guys are we're able to connect in real time, and that kind of breaks down the borders of the real world in real time, being able to collaborate and share thoughts. And you can create in 3D. You can have collaborative designers, architects, film directors, and other creatives and coders in the same room at the same time, developing content and strategies.
Okay, okay.
I think that the sound is a little bit tricky,
Yes.
but should we try to get him to give us a quick, do we have time for that
Yeah,
still?
we do.
Yeah?
But let's maybe just move on to Lute and then we come back last.
Yeah?
Okay, so here.
I'll hand this over to you.
So, given that, maybe for, just for like staff, because like, we also good friends, given that in your education, of course, because you're also studying aerospace engineering, you tried to be a pilot, you kind of found out later on in maybe halfway through that, okay, the tools that you're using as a simulator is also kind of are a much bigger community and you've been using it as a standalone, and you already asked our panelists that how they can bring more use to that case. I mean, I myself play truck simulators, and maybe we can join our two simulators and do trainings together. Not that I'm going for a truck license myself, but for the audience here, so let's say if this is kind of zoomed out, and you look more like, let's move from your home to your campus, or specifically the education part of it. Let's say, how do you see this as in aerospace faculty using metaverse or simulators to teach something? I mean, we do have subjects where maybe just games can be used to teach.
Yeah, so what I take from the presentation today, I think that we can, so with virtual reality, I think we can have a certain machine or an advanced machinery, we can look at it in VR and get more and get closer to it, see it in different perspectives basically. But I think with the metaverse we can also work together in a class and discuss certain parts together while we're both in the metaverse instead of just being alone with this VR headset or looking at it. So, and I think that's definitely different than just looking at this advanced machinery on your own. So that might be an example.
Yeah. So you're saying basically let's do group assignments on metaverse. That would make group assignments fun because we do have some boring assignments to do in group. So how many of you actually in the future would see your kids or yourself actually doing group assignments on metaverse? Raise your hands. How many would you encourage your kids, let's say? That's about 50%. So I would like to ask the other 50%, what's holding you back? Who did not raise a hand? Somebody from there. So what is holding you back, sir? Can we get a microphone? Yeah, in front. Thank you.
Well, I waiting and I was here in the office. People see it first time.
Why?
5-10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, then you should now start with flight simulator for sure.
I'm not talking flight simulator. You use Oculus. It says next 10 minutes, not more than that. They're getting motion simulators. They're getting different problems.
Right. Okay. So you think that the usage might over exceed what is actually built for, and people might actually have real life consequences because of it. Yeah. But have you seen yesterday's or last week's Meta event where they had legs now? So the characters and avatars have legs now apparently. That's a big deal in Metaverse for Meta. So, but yeah, okay, that is a good thing that there can be very small, subtle effects from the VR or from Metaverse that can happen in real life, which you as a parent or as a household person might not be comfortable doing it because you can just go to someone's house and just do the group assignment yourself. Yeah, so group, I think at a university level here at least, the Metaverse would be more fun, especially when you have complex topics like CAD models. It's so difficult to make your point of perspective understand the other one. When you rotate it, the other person is like, I don't see it, and then you're just like, you're stuck.
So normally you have a screen in front of you and tell your fellow engineer like, hey, look, this is what I created. They won't get it, but maybe if they just walk with their avatar from another angle, they'll be like, hey, this is interesting. So that might be
The future. Huh?
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the possibilities there.
Actually, we need companies like you and Xander to teach how we can use Metaverse to bring assets from real world to the virtual world and actually get the community going.
I think the biggest interface here is not necessarily the VR asset, because that in the end is a possible device. We will also go to very thin displays at some point. but so the most important interface at the moment is actually the web browser, right? So we use the web browser to go to all of these different places. And what we see is that the current web browsers, they're all already working towards a single page internet. Right? For the people who don't know what a single page internet is, it's similar to a single page web app. So that's a web app where you can easily go from one menu to another, and it feels like a very smooth integrated experience. A single page internet would be the same way. So that means that on domain, top level domain A, company A, you, let's say, add items to your cart. Then you go press on next because you want to check out. But the checkout process is actually located on a different top level domain. A different company is completely handling that process. But from the end user perspective, you don't actually notice the difference because you are logged in via your wallet, right? So the trust is handled across all of those different websites, all of those different domains. So there is no need anymore to have a separate bol.com login, a separate Decentraland login, a separate World of Warcraft login, because all of the authentication happens on chain, right? So that is the metaverse, to say that, and whether it has a virtual aspect to it or not, whether you believe in the virtual thing, NFTs, the avatars, well, that's more of the visual aspect of what this metaverse would entail. But in essence, it's more about just the internet itself, how it will evolve, right? And therefore, we strongly believe that blockchain is going to be part of it because of the identification process across all of those different apps. We believe cloud technology is going to be part of it because it's a hassle to load in all of those virtual experiences. You want, just like with TV, you just zap to another experience and you're there instantly. Right? So all of those things come together, and then you have the metaverse. And then it's just a matter of the evolution of hardware to keep up with that internet, right? So it could be very thin displays, could be lenses at some point, could be Elon Musk neural interfacing at some point, right? So nobody really knows on that level, but that's really what how we see the metaverse progress.
Maybe both you and your colleague on the left can ask.
Maybe you want to speak in the microphone?
Hi, my name is Thomas. Maybe you and the lady on your left can answer this. Thank you for explaining this also in common layman terms for the non-badass in the room. It sounds great that you don't need to manage 800 passwords, logins, etc. But how do you secure this data privacy-wise and cybersecurity-wise if I have no clue to which 800 parties my data is going? This is already an issue right now if I click on telegraaf.nl or nu.nl. How do I know that this one company, and it's probably going to be a big company, which is often underregulated, will properly handle my data, and which other 799 data providers have my data?
Yes. So that's a good question. There are several companies in the industry working on this at the moment. So one of them is actually Alliance Block. They are a company based in Utrecht, and they are building the KYC infrastructure and identification infrastructure on the blockchain, where you basically both have this privacy layer as well as the possibility to then identify certain users to, let's say, European legislators, companies that need specific information, for example, address details, your age, right, depending on the product. Then you get a confirmation as a user, do you want to expose this? If the answer is yes, then that data will only be exposed. So that's more of a how question in the end, right, than whether it should be on the blockchain or not, right? So there are ways to deal with that.
And regulation-wise, for example, Europe was ahead with GDPR.
Yes.
Some American companies are, because they don't want to lose 500 million customers, luckily are partially adopting it. But for example, most big tech companies are in the US, so US law applies or they find a way around it. We all sort of thought that was okay 4 years ago. Then we had a semi-dictator called Trump. how do you ensure that wherever the data is stored, that this is properly done, no matter which government is in place? Like, I have a privacy-friendly email provider built by scientists, which I fully trust. In Switzerland, we've a guarded data center, but that's an idealistic company with a sort of for-profit model, but that's still sort of niche. So how do you ensure that this is, no matter where you are, if you're a human rights activist, journalist, just a private citizen who wants their data properly protected, that the government's also aligned and it's not just the biggest, how to say, power player wins in the end?
I think that's one of the biggest issues in the end, right? Whether, sorry.
Maybe I can interrupt a bit.
Yeah, sure.
Still have two speakers to go.
Yeah, sure.
Can I pick up your question and your question at the end after you have gone through the two speakers? I'll remember you both. Thank you so much. I think moving on, so Lou, it's your time to shine finally. Lou is doing her civil engineering at TU Delft, and she told a very interesting story to me about developing a water world in Metaverse. So I'm also curious because I've not heard much about it. This is literally the first time you presented to us. So let's see what you have.
Yes, thank you, Mani. So, as someone who actually does not have a lot of experience with
Hey, can you hear me? Hey, Manish.
Please, Andrew.
yeah. So, yeah. So, as someone who doesn't have a lot of experience with the meta world, I was curious to know how I can implement it in my work. So, for a project, I've been setting up a water plant, water purification plant, in Argentine, and it should look like this. And in this project, there are a lot of aspects, such as taking the water from the river, transporting it, treat it, of course.
I can hear.
Yeah, so designing it, of course. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, and I was actually wondering, we're still at the beginning of it, so I was looking into the metaverse to see how I can use it. And I was wondering, as an engineer, why would I want to use the metaverse and how would I use it actually? Can I ask you? Yeah.
Just look really loud. Can you use mine?
Oh, here it is.
There you go.
Maybe we should meet in Metaverse.
Hello. Right, so as an engineer, I think the possibilities of the metaverse is bringing an augmented space that you can then share with other engineers or share with different disciplines to have a look at the space together at the same time. So that, I mean, there's so much you can do, right? From one perspective, you can recreate whatever it is that you're learning or studying so that you can visualize it not as an Excel of numbers or as flat representations, but you can actually get into it and you can even change the scale. So you can look at it at a human level scale, you can look at a micro scale, so you can zoom right in and look at specific details that normally you wouldn't see. And then you can take the zoom out view so you can look at the big picture. So that ability to zoom in and out, I think is really quite something special. The ability to replicate something simulated and then get an idea of what is it that you're looking at, it's a much more high fidelity representation than you get from some diagrams. And then to be able to sit in that space with other engineers and point at it and say, well, this here doesn't look right, or what if we do this, or what if we do that? So it gives you a very powerful collaboration tool where you can all take a part of it, and even invite people who might not be engineers, might not have even the language or the skill to understand what you're talking about, but again, I'm not understanding exactly what is it that you're looking at. But let's say, for example, it's got to do with waterways. Let's say that you've got someone whose job is actually to clean the edge of the waterways because there's algae or something, right? Totally made up. But this person is not going to have the knowledge that normally you would expect someone to go into your workspace, to start looking through CAD files or through highly developed language, and they would be thinking, I don't know, I just want to know if I can clean this or not. So having a metaverse representation means that they can walk into that space and they can see it. And they can go, well, that's going to be too far, I'm going to need a longer hose, just by looking at it. So I think that is also going to be democratizing access to knowledge that is not as dependent on the level of skill of the people who are running it. So it really brings more people to the table to have these discussions. And then as soon as you add AI to it, means that you can bring in the history of the different elements that are happening in there. You can start deriving some insights from it, and you can also start looking into the future. So if this happens up until this point, what is it going to look like in the next 6 months, in 2 years from now? What are the projections that you can start looking at? And I see you're nodding, so what would you say to that?
Yeah, I think AI is actually one of the key drivers for this. It's also dangerous in a way because right now you're an engineer. In the future you're not anymore because the metaverse is taking over the engineering job for you. Because then what you will do is you set the conditions of what you want to have. You set that in the metaverse. So you define, okay, these are the areas where the people live. This is the water lines connection. And you describe to the AI, right, what kind of system should be there to enable for to enable, for example, this water system, right? And then the AI will actually simulate the aspects needed to create that, right? And you can, and right now it feels like quite far away, but this is already happening to concept designers, to 3D designers in space. So when I'm talking to the artists working at Yom, they're super scared about AI because with AI, you don't need a concept design anymore. You can take your render in Unreal Engine, but also in CAD tools, and you prompt the AI, okay, I want it in a different style or this direction, and the AI will actually fill in the gaps to meet that specified condition, right? But the criteria, the condition is, of course, that you have created this base structure in some kind of metaverse. And so that would be very interesting future possibilities for engineers, because perhaps in 10 years, 20 years, this will be the case, but pretty sure the coming 10 years, 20 years, engineers will still be needed, fortunately. But concept artists are not needed anymore, right? So we used to have concept artists who we paid a lot to create our concept art, and right now we just have a marketeer describe the concept art and we have it, right? So it's basically, it took a few months and the whole job of concept artist is now basically being outsourced by AI.
Well,
which is, it's ironic in a way because everybody is thinking, okay, computers, they will outsource first the more tedious tasks, and the creative task will be at the very, very end, but it seems that we are going for the opposite direction. So that's very interesting on how this will eventually converge.
I mean, I'll jump in there just for a moment, because of course I'm also a concept artist in my spare time. That's why it's particularly funny. But I think that it's super powerful, and I'm also dabbling in it. And the way I see it is going to augment and amplify everything that's already there. So I think it's fantastic that you guys are already playing with it, that your marketeer can tap in a few things and get in there. I think that's great, because there's always going to be room for that sort of thing. But when it comes to bringing it back to the metaverse and how we're going to build it, I think there's room for all the houses that need to be built, because you need suddenly to allow for a lot of people coming in. You're also going to need some more guidance in terms of more specific custom builds. And when it comes to saying, all right, I'm going to need something specific for this particular use case, then I think is where the value of a concept artist or a concept person, whoever that is the ability to understand what is it that you're actually trying to get, to talk to the different people who are going to be on the table, and to bring those visual, those perspectives together. And then maybe go to the marketeer and say, okay, can you write this on so that the AI engine will create this virtual space, this virtual world for me. So I think it might be the difference between architects, builders. Within architects, you've got, of course, the architects who work for a development company and who will design 20 blocks in one go. And then you have the author architects who create these amazing pieces as statements. So I think there's room for everyone, but maybe, yeah, I think.
Has something more to add to it.
Yeah, I just want to clarify something because you said in 10 years we won't need engineers anymore. Tell my dad who's here, I will get a degree, no worries. I will. So, okay, let's assume I want to use the metaverse technology in my project. Is it possible for me to do that tomorrow already? Is the technology already far enough for me to use it?
I would say that really depends on the use case, right? So if you want to focus on the visualization aspect, there's already a whole field of architectural visualization. It's already out there for 50 years, if not longer, where the point of architecture visualization is to bring all of the blueprints into life so you can share that with the community, right? So that is also I can see that fit in already with civil engineering, and that's something you can do already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I heard? Yeah. So I think if it's just a matter of representing something visually, you can do that tomorrow indeed, right? If you created a CAD drawings, you can export it as any format 3D, you can import it in any number of meta spaces already, and you can start walking in it with your goggles in a couple of days. So that can happen now. If you want real weather simulation, for example, that gets more tricky. If you have the money for it, NVIDIA's Omniverse has a simulation engine, and they can build it for you, and you can do it. But that's going to cost the big bucks.
Yeah.
So depending on who you are, the money is there. In fact, I think BMW and a number of Siemens and a number of other big companies are already using these simulation engines because it allows them to look at how things behave in a real world in simulated activity. So that also is happening from a metaverse perspective, but you're going to need the budget to go to NVIDIA and say, can you do this for me?
Yeah. Well, it's actually very useful, especially because in this type of project it's very big. So you can't start by just building it, and that will cost a lot. So it's very useful because yeah, you will have to visualize it, and then you will see where you can work on before you do it and you make mistakes.
It costs a lot less to pre-visualize and to see
exactly,
it
yes.
first and not make mistakes later.
Yes, exactly, yeah. So last question? Yeah. So other than the space or engineering, I was wondering in the daily life, how would you use the metaverse? Like for me, I would want to use it so I can cook and so I can tell my mom that I cooked today. So yeah, she won't be mad that I ordered again. So how would you guys use it?
I want my man cave.
No, yes.
I've got so many little projects that I love doing with other people and friends, and I just don't have the room. Living in Amsterdam in a small house with wife and kids, I don't have room. So to expand, I think these virtual rooms that I could have extra, and then we can design some microsatellites or do some projects in this space that my wife is not going to get angry at me for the means that I leave behind. So that's what I would.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
I think that is I think that's a great point that when you need extra space, which is not in your house, like students don't have that much space to begin with. But I see like I have not been to Miami just yet, but I've been through because of meeting Xander because he lives there in the virtual world.
Yeah.
So maybe we can go to his world on the VR and see if he can complete his story finally from starting. Because he has a big house.
Hey Xander, you there?
I'm here.
Perfect.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're on screen, so take it away.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Yep. All right. Such a pleasure to be able to hear the presentation so far. Where should it pick up, Marcos?
I think
You should go there.
yeah. Just go to the frame.
Okay. So we got to check out this space video, and just in the theater, I wanted to point out a couple of the posters in the room. This one is for a new metaverse project I have built on Cadmus called Let Go, which is an exploration of digital fashion as an extension of consciousness beyond taste or style. This, of course, was created, this poster here with the legs and the shoes was created with AI using Midjourney, which is one of, with the discussion, one of my favorite new creative tools. And to the point, yeah, I think it's funny we were expecting AI to have more of a part in our mundane tasks, but I really enjoyed it as a tool for creativity. And finally, we have this poster for CareerCon, which is the first Learn to Earn launch of Hundo XYZ, the first Learn and Earn campus for Gen Z. So they're actually doing a 2-day global live-in and metaverse to help Gen Z get employed, which is a very important use case for future adoption. If you want to follow me, we can walk out to the terrace. I'll show you around a little bit. There we go. So we've been talking a bit about the metaverse's ability to basically create a borderless world. You guys are streamed in live from Amsterdam right now to our shared virtual space here in the metaverse in this penthouse in Miami, built by Exclusible and Polygon.io, and I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. So there's this persistence and this sense of presence in a persistent virtual environment. And that's just one of the incredible, power technology to connect us. All right, let's just move right along. I'll keep showing you a few things. I like the helicopter over there, of course, and you can see the view of Miami. All right. Here's a flyer for the upcoming NFT San Francisco in my bedroom here. I'll be the MC for that. So it's cool to also, be able to promote and collaborate in the virtual space. Partners over at Ozone Metaverse, they're a very cool other metaverse engine, collaborating in the ecosystem. And welcome to the rooftop. So before I was working on marketing projects for NASA, social media projects and marketing for brands like NASA, and before I moved into the Web3 ecosystem last year, my background is in education. I studied music education and working as a paraprofessional or assistant teacher for students with special needs, specifically kids that had autism and were nonverbal. Through a technology acquisition grant, I was able to source a software that gave these nonverbal students access to a voice. There was a voice simulation that would allow them to speak because one kid had a very expensive device that was kind of heavy and limited his mobility, and the other kid was still using flashcards. So through this technology acquisition grant, we were able to acquire the software that allowed them to be able to speak, and that's when I gained a deep love for technology's ability to create an application of technology in education to allow us to have a better quality of life. Creativity had always done that for me, allowed me to express myself and, just the inner worlds, find my voice in this world. And through technology, we were able to do this and augment this experience. And that's what I've been doing for brands that are entering the space and the ecosystems, getting to know them and allowing them express themselves and giving tools of which to do so, and content and strategies. So real quick behind you, in the spirit of AI, this is my first design that I created. It's AI plus 3D digital fashion. This dress, the free energy dress, was created in 2D, utilizing the tool Midjourney. And then through some experimental software, also utilizing AI, we were able to synthesize it into a three-dimensional object. So now I can use it in AR, VR experiences, 3D NFTs, and beyond, and in the metaverse. So this is the first time anyone's seeing this dress in 3D representation of the metaverse. So I'm happy to share that with you. And if you want to follow me over to this portal, we can jump to the last section of our metaverse tour, which will take us to my gallery.
Marco, I think we can just walk around in the gallery. Because I think there are pretty good questions. Giving us a tour in your house and your city. So, does anybody have questions for Sander? I know one had. Yes, sir. Can you have the microphone quickly?
Hi, Xander. We just met recently at Meta Fashion Rocks. My name is Michael. And thank you for introducing me to this awesome platform, Midjourney. And I have a technical question because we are also, of course, working in the metaverse, and for us, it must be always 3D. But Midjourney is like text to image. So if you imagine that the metaverse could be like some subsection, also like text to video. So this could be an interactive storytelling video for social communication, for example, for experiences.
Xander, did you hear the question?
Midjourney video for content creation, for interactive videos.
Xander?
Can you hear us?
That's the disadvantage of spatial audio.
Having the text for your question.
My question was, Midjourney is a text to image, but if this would be involved further, it could be also text to video, which could be like forming interactive stories. You could meet with real people live that are blended into this image video process. Like the metaverse might not be in the end 3D, it might be a 2D thing grounded in 3D.
Yeah.
Maybe I can answer that question. Because
Thank you.
We've been developing exactly this, but then not for video, but to 3D meshes. Right, so we are looking into including certain models that are already publicly available around there to convert, let's say, whatever you prompt in terms of the object class, but also the specific instance to a 3D model. So how it works is you have your scene, and you put in some abstract meshes, could be cubes, could be circles, could be already some kind of base mesh, and then you define what it needs to be, and then it converts into that mesh, right? Why is that? We prefer that approach because then it also has a fixed position in time and space. If you go directly to the video, so you go from AI, so let's say text to video, the problem with all of those diffusion models is that they have very small cache, or very limited memory access. That means that all of the things that are created, they're not persistent. They don't stay there, right? So that is the biggest bottleneck at the moment. If we are able to resolve them, then yes, we could develop some new paradigms that are more created, or let's say more based around 3D video structures instead of polygon based. But for now, the advantages of the polygons are in the fact that they remain persistent in time and space, right? So we're now still looking for this hybrid model. Perhaps in 10 years, when engineers are not needed anymore, then it could be the case that video would be the base also for new types of game engines. So video technology, yeah. So
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you for answering it. I was going to at least. So we are really running out of time. We're already over time, I think. But I'm going to. He's busy, so I'm going to pick you. Just one last question. And I hope in 10 years you're hiring people like us because we won't have a job. Thank you.
Quick question for me. Does anything in Xander's world or in the water purification plant rust?
Yes, I think.
If so, what's the value of rust in the metaverse?
So you mean Rust as a language or Rust the actual behavior of rusting metal? Oh, okay, so that's the physics, so the chemical process of rusting. So as far as I understood from Xander in the short span that I have known him and run in the metaverse, thank you Marco, is that you can apply real physics into your system, and when you run these physics in your system, it will behave, you have always something different between theoretical of rusting process, which is chemically known to everybody, and over time you have a model which is run through observation. But if you want to replicate that observation into different pieces or similar pieces, like oil tanks or water tanks, that you said if you know that the water tank is happening in a similar weather or condition and you want to make a new water tank in a different place with similar weather and condition, you can replicate it there and see for the size or other conditions that can be manipulated to see if the rusting actually happens. But I think more importantly what can happen is that rusting, how that affects people around it. The behavior changes, whether they start reporting to the people, or do they care about the metaverse in such a way, or the infrastructure that starts rusting. And you see also how people behave in virtual world by rusting, and then you also can model. It's very good for people who do civil engineering or civics or city engineering in general to see the behavior of people. So they can actually very specifically simulate strategically what to do where, and then see the behavior of people if they actually will deactivate. I think this is very useful for something like police work. Does that answer your question? Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. Really last because you were really waiting. Yes, it's you.
Yeah,
oh, microphone.
But building on that.
Oh, you can speak loud enough.
Yes, I think mainly the Dutch speakers will understand this. Building on the Rust point, I see the Tesla over there.
Yeah.
Also on behalf of all the people who still have this old Saab with all the hidden Rust and Volvo, etc. How do you use this technology to make it visually, attractive and insightful to the 99.5% of the people who are not engineers, so they know timely to do preemptive maintenance? I have some friends who have old cars like this. I worry about their safety every day, so I'm curious how you can use this simulation to simulate the rust, and before they get in a crash, talk to the actual engineer.
I think I can maybe quickly. So he was asking about rust. Yeah. There are actually other stuff like stresses in materials, for instance, that can be or cannot be in the metaverse. So if I come back to this flight simulator thing, so there you have an aircraft with certain materials, and during your flight you have a certain flight you conduct, for instance, with certain G-forces, and also weather plays a big role. Not only the moisture in the air, electrical charges, but also the winds on the airplane. So there are already quite a lot of possibilities where you can see the stresses that has been on the aircraft frame from your flight in the simulator. Would you continue more flights after this in the simulator or not? So there are many applications that you can do there. And then I think to answer or to come to your question, it will just depend on the connection with maintenance and the manufacturer.
Yeah, I think the rusting can cause thermal structural change, let's say, even paint, even the look of the car, which people might not take very seriously in the starting, but you can kind of change you can exaggerate the effect of it to your friend's Tesla car. You can hack into the system.
Well, mainly the old Saabs.
So yeah, so the old one is like so when you drive, let's say you can drive those virtual cars, you can affect the performance of that driving, and that will correlate directly from rusting process, which has multiple other byproducts to it. Like you have a very weak steering wheel, the car is not steady as it was 3 months ago because rusting happened on it, but you can also just make it faster just to make them sure that yes, rusting, a simple process like rusting can cause big problems in your real world car, which you can perform now instead of doing it in 3 years down the line. So I think the manipulation that you can do with timelines in a virtual world, given the physics is real, I think is immense benefit for you, because you can already feel something happening in 3 years now and fix it because the problem is smaller. Then you can tell your friends, you know what, I'm going to increase the rust level in such a way that you will feel the car is going wobbly, and it's like, your Tesla is no more a Tesla, it's a garbage. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, I think, thank you, and I would like to thank the panelists here and Xander. I'm sorry that we are not seeing your very highly curated gallery. We can go back to his gallery. There you go. I don't know how many years he spent doing this, or months, or days, or nights. But a big round of applause for our panelists and from Xander and the audience, of course, yourself. Thank you so much. And with this, I would like to pass on to the next session.
In ethics, no, but forensics. No, it's just critical minds. As I said, I advise on and disabled bit policy. That's my day job.
Niet allemaal, maar in ieder geval. Ik heb er 6, hè? 6 man. Ja, 6